the army will take over and they will announce whoever becomes the president. But he didn't seem to suggest that. First of all, he suggested there's unlikely to be another scenario, but then he also didn't seem to say that that would be the worst of things. Probably he didn't paint a picture of there probably being chaos or there being some sort of upheaval. It would be just a normal army takes over and then life continues to move on normally, maybe for a period of time until things change. So that second bit of
And that is to imagine. That is to imagine that there's a harmonious army. We don't have that today.
yeah, because
We do
my,
not have.
my colleague asked him that as well, and he said, "No, the army is more united than people ever imagine." So,
No.
okay, so you
The army is in quiet descent. They have tried to create an army for him, retiring all the other people. They've tried to build an army around him. Now they are building a political class around him. Now they are building also a technical class around him. And so that's the plot. But not every plot works very well. If you look back in our history, you will see that Muammar Gaddafi had tried that as well. And so did the Sudanese man and all the others that invite themselves into such a hopeless situation, that you can secure a country by yourself, and that this country has lost citizenship, you are the only citizen. And the loss of constitutionalism, the loss of power disempowerment. If you want to look at it another way, look at where the guns reside. And I'll take you through around the country. Does Buganda have guns? Are they ready to use them? Does Busoga have? Does Acholi have? Go around and you will know where the guns are and who is ready to use those guns to defend themselves, where the generals are and where they are ready to defend their community. So this is not rocket science, my brother. Everything is written on the wall
yeah,
for all of us to see.
I hear you loud and clear. And you began
Yeah.
this response by saying everything is being done for him, people are being retired for him. And by that, him, who do you mean? Is that the CDF still?
The CDF,
The
yeah.
CDF, okay. So
Who happens to be many, many other things as well.
we'll get into those many other things as we go on with this conversation. So I see we have a second
Yeah.
speaker who happens to be the Honorable Alice Alaso. I don't know if that account is being used by Geno or if Geno delegated him, her, or something of that sort. So I'll just find out at this point. Honorable Alice Alaso, do you mind unmuting and talking to us? Honorable Alice Alaso, in case you're speaking, your microphone is muted. Honorable Alice Alaso. Okay, so we'll get back to that account later. Maybe yes, Honorable.
Yes, please.
I see Honorable Alice Alaso was unmuted at some point. Honorable, are you still
All
there?
right.
Alice Alaso, I mean. Okay. So back to Honorable Salam Musumba now. Honorable, you talked of the constitutional safeguards, term limit, age limit. Both were booted out of the constitution. The first one left in 2005. The most recent one left in 2017. Now the constitution is
Yes.
just there without what one would call peaceful transfer of power railguards. Now, fortunately for us as the people, you see, God loves us as Ugandans.
Mm-hmm.
Honorable Norbert Mao has said it's a matter of bringing these things back. He has said he's going to go around the country, look for ways of bringing in provisions into the constitution that would then usher in a peaceful transfer of power. How optimistic or pessimistic are you about his suggestions?
Well, the first thing to interrogate is who is he speaking for? Who does Honorable Mao speak for? Does he speak for NRM? Does he speak for DP? Does he speak for me? The answer is no, because his mandate is limited to cabinet. Has he introduced these matters to cabinet? Has he sought the approval for collective action? We need also to look back in history. the constituent parts that made up Uganda at independence. Where are they in this equation? They negotiated the independence of this country, and their voices went mute, and they got displaced. Until we retrace who we are and how we came to be, we will never find our way forward. Because I don't know who Honorable Mao speaks for. I don't. For sure, he doesn't speak for me. And I don't think all the other constituencies acknowledge that he speaks for them, because in doing the 1995 constitution, there was an elaborate process that we all followed, that we all tracked. Today, this is a one-person thing, and it defeats multi-party politics. We are back into individualism, individual merit, individual demerits. And so we as a citizenry are lost. We don't know where we are at in the Constitution. The Constitution has been so badly shredded that you can't even know where it is. Where are we now? And who's doing what for us? You know, it's like we are governed by thieves. Thieves who are stalking us, and thieves who are watching out to pounce on us. I mean, a constitution is supposed to help us live in harmony and live well and thrive collectively. But somebody's playing the game of solitaire and looking at the cards alone and throwing them at us. That cannot be a constitution that governs a country like us. A constitution that has been shredded, that has been manipulated, disabled. I mean, a constitution that has actually is worse than the so-called pigeonhole constitution or Lancaster constitution. There is no discussion about our collective future, our collective existence in this geographical space called Uganda. And so I'm at pain to discuss an empty space that Honorable Mao now occupies, and that he sets his own rules and chooses when and what to tell the people of Uganda. We are not his subjects. We are citizens. We are not his subjects. And so the best that we can do is to call him to order. That, you know, you are breaching our constitutional trust. You're breaching the aspirations of the people of Uganda and imposing your will on us. And that is contrary to Article 1, that all power belongs to the people, us. There's nothing good to write home. The elephant in the room is transition. And what Mao is looking at is the extension of all these ugly things that we know in our history. He's actually a weapon now. Look at Honorable Mao as a rifle. In the past, you would have called him the king's, the king's royal rifles, something like that. But today he's just a weapon. You would even consider him as a political terrorist, pouncing on us without a discussion. That's not what the democracy requires us to do. At least not in the year in this millennium. So I'm sorry, but there's nothing to write home about what is being proposed by Honorable Mao and whoever else he works for and speaks for.
Okay, Honorable, now that you have painted this, I would say, rather gloomy picture with the political side of how these things are playing out, have you seen other sides perhaps try to play a counterbalance? If we talk about the elders, the religious leaders, the traditional leaders, have they been any better in perhaps trying to help this country move towards a peaceful transfer of power for the first time in its history as things stand right now?
Well, again, when when a system dies, it also falls like a pack of cards. And so the 40 years of one-party rule of President Museveni has impacted adversely onto the entire community and institutions. And I can safely say that the traditional leaders, the custodians of who we were and who we ought to be, have also been co-opted. The religious leaders too, and this wouldn't be a bad thing in itself, because if they were working in unison, they would be ensuring that we have a better product. Unfortunately, it's like they're equally helpless and voiceless. And so we have this cocktail of failure that we have to deal with in different degrees. I would, for instance, would want to know what the religious leaders say about the situation in which we find ourselves and how do we unravel it. I won't waste time on the traditional leaders because they have been relegated to observer status on matters of state, and they have happily consented. And yet, if I was to use my own home experience, Sir William Wilberforce Nadiope, the first vice president of this country, was at the table in Lancaster and all the things, the union that led us into independence. And so were others. But you do not find on the table of Uganda's politics today a space for him or his successors. The collective voice of we, the territory of Busoga. And it's the same for all the other places, Buganda, Bunyoro, Ankole, Chigezi, and all that. So this disorientation since independence has led us to this situation we find ourselves in, but we can no longer keep pleading history, slave trade, and all that. We have the knowledge, we have the muscle, the political capability and capacity to reverse all these unconstitutional things and work in unison to give ourselves a better country that we call home. So no, the other actors, professional bodies, traditional cultural leaders, and religious leaders have all conspired to betray ourselves, knowingly, unknowingly, consciously or unconsciously. That's the sum total of what their omission and commission have led us to.
Okay, for those who have just joined us along the way, today we are talking about the same thing we talked about the other week or last week, the question of Uganda's transition, and we are continuing that discussion. I'm joined by Honorable Salam Musumba, a former member of parliament, and along the way we hope to be joined by General Mugisha Muntu, a former commander of the Uganda People's Defense Forces and a mobilizer for the Alliance for National Transition, and okay, I'm getting that wrong. Alliance for National ANT. Sorry, I almost said ANC, but so that's the discussion we're having right now. So far, the honorable with us has told us that there is not much hope for this country. Power has been usurped and taken into the hand of one person. She's saying that unless something magical or miraculous happens, we are likely to have a chaotic transition. So that is the point we are at right now. So, Honorable, I'll come back to you. With all that is going on in Uganda, there seems a lot of hopelessness. The politicians seem to be I think corruption has actually hit a new high. Many of the lawyers say that the courts are corrupt to a level they had never been in the past. Everything seems withdrawn, and the president or the presidency, the executive seems to be having a free pass. Yet at the same time, the roads are now worse than they've ever been. Education is barely funded and going to rot. teachers, health workers, so many government staff every now and then announce that they're striking, and the young Ugandans, hundreds of thousands of them, if recent surveys are anything to go by, have chosen to vote with their feet, and they rather go and be housemaids, gardeners, and every other thing in a desert called Saudi Arabia than be in Uganda. So, from your own assessment, if we continue along this trajectory for 5 or 10 years, how does that play out for Uganda in the long run, in say like 20 years from now? How much damage can this do to our country?
We are already damaged goods. We are already not viable, not competitive. And the sorry thing is that we have lived, I think, quarter life, and the majority of us, with the potential that we collectively share, we could have been the best nation on the planet. The only missing thing is governance. And we thought we had fixed it in 1995, and we actually believed that President Museveni would be that one freedom fighter that would give us that which we haven't tasted and which we desire so badly. He has made a choice not to follow all the past leaders that he demonized, and he will be part of that heap of past leaders that he demonized for so long and failed to turn the page. The next generation, you see, this cannot be a permanent situation. We are going to have a rough transition, rough like all the others have been. And I sense and I feel the restlessness of everybody in Uganda, the restlessness that they cannot have more of the same. And I also see that ready to die if that is what it will take to rein in the situation that doesn't seem to be giving way. If it's anything to go by, one of the indicators is what happened over the weekend with the professionals. And that is the palpable feeling in every space in this country, professional, political, religious. You will soon see young priests revolt against their leaders. You will soon see it. If you do recall that there was a time that that the lay people revolted against bishops. Bishops appointed in Kampala, bishops appointed in Rome. They say we will not have this. We are getting to that very soon. And very soon meaning in 2025. Because when a community loses hope with the apathy that is readable even in your voice as a moderator, what else is there to lose? What else is there to lose? Because if you have something to save, and then you work for it. But if there's everything to lose and you have nothing left to lose, that desperate situation, that desperate society is very difficult to rein in and to control. So that is the trajectory of the country. I don't know whether you see what I see, but that's the trajectory I see. And I have been here long enough to tell what is about
Yeah,
to happen.
I see exactly that, but the advantage with you is that you've lived through much longer time and you know more. So when we have you on these spaces, that is the whole point. You give us a perspective from the angle of an experienced eyes and person who has lived through it all. So the other thing now, Honorable, is when you look at the opposition, we have 2021. We in a way probably moved from.
2026,
I mean,
2021,
yeah, 2021.
2021.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
2021 that people voted, and this time
Yeah.
it became Snoop became the leading party in parliament with
Yes.
about 57, 56 MPs. I don't know which. if my math gets me, if the math is not playing me, but it's one of those two, 56, 57. The FDC is still a big force in the parliament, but not really
Yes.
the anymore. Same with DP. DP went ahead to make an alliance with the NRM. Before that, there was UPC that did the same. Looking at
Yeah.
those opposition parties, and you yourself are in one of those opposition parties. I don't know which one particularly right now, or which particular
Mhm.
faction, which party. So, do you
Mm.
think the opposition is up to the task of such a magnanimous thing as the transition that is playing out before us at this particular point in time?
You see, you deal with what you have. If those are the eggs you have for the omelette, that's what you have. But I know that collectively, in those parties, there is the goodwill, and there are also experts and knowledgeable, capable leaders that can work towards getting us back on track to where we were going. I know that. And that it is inevitable that we will have to do that sooner than later. And let me also inform all the people on the platform that discussions are going on about that possibility. And so you cannot judge an opposition that has been targeted, deliberately weakened, and attacked as a strategy of retaining power for the sake of power. In fighting an entrenched dictatorship, it takes more than has been on the table to push back. But that said, I must tell you that the lost political class must work in its self-interest to preserve what they have built. That is the first start point, to preserve what they have built. If they do not preserve it, it will also go out in smoke, and we will start all over again. Even at our worst, I wouldn't like to see that happen. I would want every effort to be made to build on the 40 years, the 62 years that we have been independent as a country. Let us use our history as the lesson for the next generation of leaders. I remember we said that about Museveni and his group when they arrived. We said never again. And here we are, still at it. So, as Honorable Montrose says to me, maybe it's the color of our skin that we never seem to get nothing right. But I do believe that we can gather ourselves once again and start afresh. So, to answer you, we will do with what we have, because we cannot become Kenyans, we cannot become Somalis or Sudanese. We are Ugandans. We need to find ourselves and fix ourselves. And I'm sure that these voices are all over us. You on this platform, the Mwenda with his group that have tried everything and find themselves on a journey to nowhere. They've tried crookery, they've tried all sorts of things. It hasn't worked. And so they've got to look at the political mirror and see who is coming after them and what they must do to salvage us all.
Okay. Sticking with that particular group, I don't know how you brought in yet. I was going to ask you just about it. The Muhozi group. You said the Mwenda group. Yeah, but it's one and the same. So right from 2022, I think, just after the election, they started this big mobilization, moving across the country, doing all these sorts of things. And
No,
you
they began the wild gamble,
yeah, the wild gamble
the
started
wild goose gamble.
as back then. But in the grand scheme of things, you had hinted earlier that transition can even be within the ruling party. Um, So when you look at that group and the things it does, Mwenda said when he was here last week, sorry I keep going back to him, but yeah, because he said things that I think relate to what we are speaking. He said it is good that the Muhoozi group came out because he believes that Museveni can only hand over power to his someone like Muhoozi, who is his son. So that we Ugandans should be grateful that Muhoozi has come up. Finally, Museveni is going to hand over power peacefully to someone probably we don't like, but at least he will have handed over power to his son, and then we can pick it up from there and fight with the army we have at that point in time going forward, the opposition that we have and all that. Is that how you also see it? That it is actually, after all, a good thing that finally Museveni has someone he can give power to, and then we don't wake up to bullets flying all over the place?
You see, Mwenda is on duty to 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 promote that narrative and make it acceptable to the population. And I want to say to him, no, sir, that is not what Ugandans want, because they had their kingdoms, they had their rulers, and they were successfully doing so before this political fraud set in, the one for which he's growing a successor to inherit the great republic. That narrative is still dead on arrival. And they've invested so much money to force it down the throats of every Ugandan, and it has failed to work. And it will not work. Please stop it at that. Let's go back to the constitutional order. Because it's not just his son and his family that are in governance. There's your family, there's also my family and other people's families that make up this country, that would love to see us transit peacefully. And I'm sure that a freedom fighter like President Museveni needs no lectures on this. And I don't believe he's lost and not found. I believe that he must show the courage to face Ugandans and face himself and say, listen, this country that I've built for 40 years, that I have contributed to for 40 years, can move. Initially, they said that a leader would emerge. The leader has failed to emerge from where they wanted him to emerge. That's why Pirao now is on just a plate for eating. It's not anywhere in the political discourse. You can't do this trickery forever. This trickery leads to death.
Honorable,
And
you
please
called it
save us
Pilau.
this.
Honorable, you called it Pilau.
Yeah, this clever cut thing that they are doing. There's no clever cut in all this. There are so many families on the brink of becoming refugees, of losing lives, if we don't get sorted this way. Please. And let us not advance Mwenda's warped thinking to impose it on all of us. We refuse. I refuse. I refuse to be co-opted into this. This is wrong ab initio, and it remains so. And Mwenda knows better. So, if I was in leadership today, I would arrest Mwenda for treason, for even contemplating this and running with it. Because what he's committing is treason. That narrative is treason. Because we have a constitutional order. Please don't take us that way. And you too don't. Don't repeat the falsehoods. I think they should try a lecture by the so-called political scientists in Makerere University, if they still exist. The so-called lawyers all over the place. Straighten this out for the ordinary people, because they're relying on you and your intellect and your knowledge, or if you have it, to straighten out these things. Because it's us, the political class, that took the population into a constitutional making process. You are the ones taking us into anarchy. So please bang the tables more and more in every space you occupy. get
Okay.
back on track.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable, again. Now, the reality we have as Ugandans right now, I know there are a couple of young people on this space who are listening to all you're saying, and I would just put it to you now at this point that if you are to speak to those young people on this space, let's say people who are like 25, 26, or even 35, how best, now that you've showed us how much we should be concerned with this thing called transition, because while we haven't seen a peaceful transition as a country, at least we have seen very many 1966, 1971, 1979, 1980
1980,
led to the revolution,
1982. I
1986.
can name them all for you.
So now that we have seen those unpeaceful transfers of power and the human carnage that came with it, the cost on the economy, on human livelihoods, on disruption, on stagnation, and all that came with it, and we must avoid it at all costs. So, how best
Yeah.
can someone who is on this space, they are not a politician, they're just a powerless doctor, a powerless lawyer. I'm using powerless loosely in this case.
No, that one would be a useless person to talk to. Powerless lawyer, powerless
Okay,
doctor. I don't have the time for
just a
those.
citizen of Uganda. So what would you talk to them at this point? How best can they organize? What can be their role and how should they participate in ensuring that we have a peaceful transfer of power?
The first thing is for them to be conscious and recognize that they are powerless for now. We are back into gun rule. And this gun rule is different in that one part of the region is stalking the whole country, stalking us and disempowering us economically, changing, uh, changing citizenship, actually turning the constitution into a weapon against the rest of us. And therefore, their political consciousness must be raised into action. Is required urgently. You don't have to wait for 2026 because the layout of the game now for 2026 is just worse than the one, but the same template is on the table. And so don't wait. Don't even accept. Don't even don't even be polite about these things. Let us use 2026 as the trigger. Let's use 2026 as the game changer. Let us use it with everything that we have to get us to a position where we are able to get power to back to ourselves by not falling prey to fear, falling prey to money, and falling prey to manipulation. I have already heard that Office of the National Chairman of the National Resistance Movement is already preparing vote protection against who? Protecting votes against who? Because you are the thief, you are the manipulator, you are the torturer, and now a smoke screen is being created that vote protection. All we want is a free and fair election as provided for in the Constitution and the laws. But what we have right now is already political environment. We already have an electoral commission, which is just a paper tiger. It is the military that are managing the elections. And so this foolery must be put to an end. We must, because this will damage an entire country. If you want examples, look at Sudan. Sudan under Bashir looked like a stable democracy, a military democracy. And so Bashir used to win elections by 99%. Look at where Sudan is today. I mean, that is where we are going. because you have the new generals versus the old generals, you have the freedom fighters versus the Johnny come lately, is new money working against old money, and all these distortions equal to one thing called trouble for all of us. Whether you want to agree or not agree, that is where we are faced. And so, you young people, the first thing I would advise you to do is that you can't manage this on your own. You must work transgenerational, pick up all this knowledge, all this capacity, and form a winning group and support a winning group so that in your time you have a country you can call home. You don't have to die as slaves on the plains, in warehouses in Dubai, in warehouses in Saudi Arabia, raped, maimed, and actually it's boys that are getting more raped. And you know how that gets into mental health problems. So, young men, we were young too, and so was Museveni's group. Actually, I would have loved to hear from my colleague, Honorable Muntu, at 26 as a CDF, working tirelessly to stabilize this country and being thrown out as a group that had to give way to the new team that they are preparing to hand over to, not through a transition, but through a succession. So don't look like the Arab Spring that never saw the fruits of what it had worked for. If you also turned your eye to the Gen Z and in Kenya and what's happening now, you would see that we cannot achieve the transition and the transformation out of just one generation. It has to be intergenerational. And this is what I would plead to you and pray that you do understand that you should not rush to crash, because that happened to us in 1986. What we are suffering is because we believed and believed freedom they were fighting for was collective freedom. Actually, with hindsight now, you can see what they were fighting for and what they tell you in broad daylight, that I didn't fight for you, I fought for myself and my family. And that is true. That is the hard truth. So, can we make it possible for all families of this republic to be part of this country and part of the collective success that we all seek to achieve? Gen Z and Generation What, it is our time, will not work, because you will not even hold that power. You don't know what the animal called power is. First study the thing they call power. Once you understand power and what power does to people and what power does to destroy so many things, then you will be better prepared to handle this power. And you need mentorship. And you need also to learn from the best. Unfortunately, there are very few that you can learn from. I would have recommended Mwenda, but the Mwenda I knew then and the Mwenda who is here is a shadow. It is a sad reality. And so, young people, we need to re-engineer this country so that it works for us all intergenerationally.
Okay, Honorable, you hinted at some just before that 2026, the next election, which starts in effect next year, because that's when the nomination and the bulk of the campaign will happen, and then the election is in early 2026. So you hinted on that election as being a game changer, something more pivotal than probably the previous elections. What would make that the case? Because as you can see it now, the headline of the Daily Monitor, was it on Sunday, said that the Honorable Chagulanyi has already thrown his hat in the ring. He's going to seek a second term. I mean, he's going to seek a second bite at the cherry. The president the other day got nominated, endorsed by his son, and we know that he started campaigning through the ONC, the Office of the National Chairperson that you mentioned earlier. In effect, from as soon as he was sworn in the current term of office, he has been campaigning. So, from your own experience and assessment of these scenarios, what makes 2026 that moment, the Eureka moment for Uganda's politics? And what are those things that the youth whom you've spoken to should capitalize to make it even more impactful as far as drawing closer to the transition is concerned? What should be those things?
Well, you see, Chagulanyi had fallen for the trap laid for him as a person. And he has left behind the organization he leads. Because I don't think that that is how you ascend into being a flag bearer of a party, that you announce yourself. That in itself is a failure. Because what we accuse President Museveni of, we should not imitate. We should work very, very calculatedly to avoid those pitfalls, because they're easy, they're snares. This idea of me, myself, and I as a leader is the biggest disaster that has hit us. And so the patience we require to build back public confidence and to build back institutions that lead us to the leadership we want must be maintained. I think Uganda should ignore all that and focus more on how to liberate themselves. And liberation, unfortunately, will not come through the ballot prepared by Biabakama. Forget that. We will have other, and those options must be evaluated and activated. And I believe that the Honorable Chagulanyi can retrace his path if he still wants to be a leader of his generation. He's going to do more than he did in the. He needs to re-engineer himself too. He needs to reach out, because majorities quickly become minorities, and you may not recover from there. So, what I would advise, one, is that we get back on the tables we've been at for the last year and continue to prepare for that situation, which is inevitable. And it is in our self-interest, self-preservation, to have that discussion, and also to be able to invite all of you, because we don't live in this country alone. When you go back home, I'm sure you don't realize that you've created like a small prison for yourself. Burglar proofing, askari, razor wire, and, and cameras, and yet you don't sleep. Even a rat is enough to disrupt you the whole night when it crosses the floor. So we are all not secure, we are all not safe. And as a country too, we are not safe, we are not secure, we risk being a failed country yet again. So what it will take is political consciousness, as I am laboring to, and all of us have labored to for 20 years, to inform country. But what it will also take is organization. But we will also have a leaderless transition, or a leaderless change of power. Or we will also have a disorganized transition. So we have to make a choice. Which transition would we rather have? And which opposition would we rather work with? A formal opposition or an informal opposition? Because a formal opposition, you can reach out across the table and invite others. But if we go back to guerrilla stuff, it is not in our interest to do so. But if it becomes inevitable, that is the change that will happen. No amount of intimidation, no amount of threats will happen, will stop it. Because at 80, which should be 85, at 80, you're on your way out. And out, what next? At 50, you are not a youth, you are a man. And so stop doing childish things. Unless you are talking about Bazukulu at 20. But that too will not happen. You cannot, the river won't flow upstream. It will go downstream. And so we must respect nature and respect ourselves. I don't know why we are so involved in rat races and in conjuring up situation when it is in our power to resolve many of these things that we are talking about. The final responsibility is, how does President Museveni intend to get out? Because when you're in politics, you must manage your entry, manage your existence, and manage your exit. How has he plotted to manage his exit? It surely can't be family rule. It will not happen.
Okay, Honorable, we have never as a country been in this scenario where you have a president who is 80 years, has been in power for 40 years, and then the question becomes transition. In fact, we have had, in the past, we have had presidents who served as short as 64 days. Amin, who was the longest serving uninterrupted, just did about 9 years. So we, for the first time, we have a president who has served for this long, and now he's probably in the evening of his rule. Yet he
Not
seems
probably. He is in the evening.
so yet he looks very unconcerned, unbothered. And we've seen other examples of people who have been in this scenario. If you talk about Gaddafi, who was preparing his son Saif Gaddafi, you know how that ended. I think Saif Gaddafi announced he would contest in the presidential election recently, and then the election was botched and they missed out. You had Hosni Mubarak, who was preparing his son Gamel Mubarak, and it ended up in turmoil. You had Zimbabwe's Robert Mugabe, who was preparing his wife Grace Mugabe. Everything blew up in flames, and there was no transition as they had planned. So, with so many examples that a gamble like this can pay off so badly. In fact, the last time I read about Grace Mugabe and the Mugabe family is that they had these big farms, some of the farms that they took from the white settlers, and they had made it. One of those farms was a big enterprise for the family. And the last thing I read about them was that some of the farm implements were being put up for auctioning because the family couldn't meet the costs right now that they were out of power. It got to a point as far as that Mugabe's son-in-law was divorcing his daughter, and then for the first time, that also exposed how much the family had looted in terms of how much the daughter had in her own name. Now, with all these ugly scenarios, on the one hand, and yet you have other examples. If you could look at Goodluck Jonathan in Nigeria, for instance,
Yeah,
or
even look at Meles Zenawi,
Mel
where the
Zenawi,
wife used to be in
yeah, or
parliament and intimidated everybody. Where is that family? Meles
yeah,
Zenawi.
yeah, but now on the other side, the good side of it, that people sometimes negotiate their way out of power. So you have Goodluck Jonathan in Nigeria, you have Daniel Arap Moi in Kenya, December 2002. He negotiated his way. He has kept much of his wealth. Of course, now the family is in court, losing some of that property, but at least through a more credible process of court. You have Obasanjo in Nigeria, who was in Uganda, I think, only last week, moving freely across the continent, doing all these things. You had Jerry Rawlings in Nigeria. So there's also that other side that if you do it
In
well,
Ghana.
yeah,
Mm.
Ghana, if you do it well, there are these dividends. But if you do it bad, you could lose even the little you're trying to keep. How do we get someone like President Museveni to appreciate that reality and act on it before probably things run out, and in the worst case scenario, end up like Sudan and everyone loses out?
Well, the choice is his. Really, the choice is his. And he's the best historian, if you know him. He's a man of great wisdom and great knowledge. which he could apply to himself of the end game. As for securing himself, what I know about Ugandans is that they are very, very forgiving people. They are very accommodative. And that we can put all these things of years in our past and move past the 40 years and move on. Because I can't recover my 40 years, however angry I am. I can't. I can't recover the time. And so I can only bequeath it to the next generation. And the 1995 Constitution that he himself procured was meant to sort out all these things. And there was an effort to do so. I mean, I look at old at old people, very, very articulate legislators in the past, that we will die disrespected. We will die unannounced. We will die, and nobody wants to know anything about us. And so, why did you acquire all this wealth for? Why did you steal all this Ugandan wealth for? What for? At the end of the day, it is the vanity that has engulfed ourselves needs to be fixed. And there's good time. There's good time. There's still time for it. Without us having to think around with the constitution and elongate it and do what it is a vain thing that we are all caught up in, and I don't want to advise anybody to do it. Just do your part and go and get moving, and go on. Let the country move on. Let us all live well, and we can. So what worries President Museveni is only known to him. But I would want to assure him that Ugandans loved him so much, and Ugandans believed him, Ugandans trusted him. Our brothers and sisters died on that battlefield for a better Uganda, and that hasn't come to pass. Very, very pathetic. Very pathetic. I don't even know whether anybody remembers what the Luwero War was about. I wish you would find Honorable Montu to give us that perspective. Because as young men with other alternatives, they chose to go to the bush. What did they want to bring? And what did they bring? And what has it morphed into? And how do we then recover from this? I think this debate is good, but there are people who are missing on the table. And among those are the historicals, the people, if there are any remaining of independence, to tell us the story at midnight on the 8th, what Ugandans' aspirations were and what is left of that. We have talked enough on this horror story, and I think we need now to shape the future.
Yes, Honorable. And I just want to say that we're having these spaces on this particular topic as a series. So that's why I said that last week we had someone else. We're having you today. The fact that Honorable Mugisha Muntu is not with us, a bit complicated things, but now we think we'll have him probably next week to talk from a purely historical and military angle into this topic. So we're going to be having these topics for not. This is not the end of them, and it's interesting that they will coincide with independence and even overtake it, so that we can just have this reflection as a people, as a country, and see what the future holds for us, drawing lessons from our current and our past. So at this point in time, I'm going to bring in people from the audience to ask questions. So if you're there with a question for Honorable Salah Musumba, you think you have a comment to make in relation to this topic, or you have anything to say, pretty much, it's your time to ask for the microphone. How you do that is by pressing the button, and if you're using a phone, there's a button to the bottom left of your phone screen. Once you press it, I'll get prompted that you've pressed it and you're asking for the microphone. Then I can give it to you. So for those who get the microphone, the rules are simple. One question, be brief to the point. I mean, be straightforward to the point, and bear in mind that many more other people may want to ask, so that we can allow as many of them to ask, so don't take too much time. So I'm going to begin with my good friend Kakaire, who I think should be having a microphone right now. It's always disheartening that whenever this it gets to this part, it's always men that pick them, ask for the microphone, and yet when you look through the space, there's so many ladies. So yeah, we are going to prioritize any lady that asks for the microphone at this point. Please just ask for the microphone, and let's have your views too. Let it not just be a discussion of men. I know today, of course, the main speaker was a lady, but it's always disheartening to see that there are more men asking for these microphones at all time. So let's start with Bernard, and then we go to Mugisha. I see Kakairi has dropped off, so let's start with Bernard, and then we go to Mugisha.
Yes, thank you, Council. Can you confirm if you're getting me?
Loud and clear. So when you come on, just ask the question. If I can't hear you, that's when I'll talk, in the interest of time.
Okay. Thank you so much. I would like to thank you for bringing up this discussion of transition. I would like to ask Honorable Proskovia Salam Musumba for the fact that she has interacted with most of the people, and they have their loads, they have their generation. Does she think that their generation is actually focusing on the transition? Thank you.
Okay, so Honorable, note that we are going to take 5 at a time. You respond to them, then we take others as and when they come. Next up is Mugisha.
Okay, thank you very much, Toko, for the opportunity. For me, first of all, I want to comment on one thing, that as we speak right now, with a swarm of constitutional review, the Umobano asking a constitutional review, the Mao, the Mpugas, I believe it's a high time that we understand that these people are creating vacuum for themselves. And the second thing, it's a question to my dear Madam Salam Musumba, Honorable, that don't you think it is high time we start teaching Ugandans about Article 3 in its entirety? Is it not the time that we teach Ugandans this Article 3 of the Constitution of Uganda, so that they can understand how best they can come in to liberate themselves? Thank you. I will stop there for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Let's have Pius, then we have David, and then we have Bosco Don. Pius, if you're speaking, we can't seem to hear you. So you have to unmute and then speak. As Pius gets that sorted, let's have David Jansi, and then we have Bosco Don. David, you two are mute. Bosco Don?
Yes, I can hear you.
Please, straight to the
Can you
point.
hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Good evening, members. I need to be very straight to the point. My question is, 2026 is just ahead of us, some few months. But my observation is the current position we have in Uganda. My view is, at the moment, they look more disorganized than in the previous years. Why I'm saying this is, what Honorable Salam Musumba, what's our view specifically on the opposition are currently on the level of their organization? Because what I see, one reason as to why the NRM government and President Museveni, they are stronger and getting stronger if you observe them, is because our position look to be people who are very easy to compromise. I'm asking her, from the corridors of the opposition, what's that new thing they have in the kitchen which would make them look stronger and better? Because speaking the truth, if you look at all countries around the world where transition is always peaceful and where opposition, you see them winning and anything happens, it always originates from the opposition. As she earlier on mentioned, without the strong opposition, people are experienced and knows the incumbent very well. Even the younger generation, even they come in, there's nothing new which will come out of it. So the way I see, if you look at various parties, the way they're doing their thing, they're moving zigzag here and there and looking very confused than even the previous years. So what are the new things most of these opposition parties they have in place to make sure that 2026 looks more unique, such that the young people have that little hope that probably
Okay.
a peaceful transition will happen? Thank you.
Thank you, Bosco Don. David, are you now here? Okay. Once in a while, people ask for microphones and they just go mute. That seems to be the case with David. Now, so we'll have Nabuyanda.
Kindly confirm that you can hear me, Toko.
Just ask. If I can't hear you, I'll let you know. Just when you get the microphone, just ask the
Okay.
question. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. My question to the Honorable Salam Musumba is, she has been here since 2001, and she has seen all the elections that have happened on ground. Just like the previous speaker, I have said, I'll say the results are still the same. So the question is, why are we still talking about elections or participation in elections of Museveni, where he's the organizer and the person declaring results in Uganda today, yet we know that elections have failed us as a nation? What happened to community organization, or why are Ugandans not yet invested into rising up into a mass popular uprising? Because for me, I believe it's the only solution to see Museveni and Musevenism out of this country called Uganda. Thank you, Toko. Have a blessed night.
Right. Principal D.
Yes, Honorable Salam Musumba, we had Mr. Yusuf Serunkuma, one of the columnists with the Observer newspaper, and he clearly told us that the available practical options is either military coup or massive protest, and the politicians know it. All those need mobilization, and yet currently we see that FDC is disappointing us by trying to register a political party. The question is, can't they join an already existing institution?
Okay. Is that it? Thank you. Okay. I think in this batch, the final person I will take is Milton, and then we'll have the honorable respond, and then we can have another round. So Milton, Rugaza, kindly ask your question. Milton Rugaza, we are waiting for you anxiously and patiently. Please ask your question.
One of the reasons why we haven't had a transition within our country is the disorganization and infighting within the opposition. Madame Sarah Musumba, Honorable, was there while FDC was being torn apart and leading to the departure of General Mugisha Muntu. General Mugisha Muntu said, time will tell. And indeed, we can see what is happening. Has she reflected on the departure of the founders and key figures within the opposition? And does she regret, for example, the departure of General Mugisha Muntu? Thank you.
Perfect. Honorable, over to you to respond
Yes,
to
thank
those
you.
questions.
Thank you very much. I want to thank Bernard, Mogisha, Bosco Don, Nabuyala, Principal D, and Milton. Thank you very much. Now, transition since 2004. There seems to be some level of incoherence even within the people participating. That the attack on the Constitution in 2004 happened in open glare. And I was among the people that we were 46, and you can still check the record of Parliament, the Hansard, and find that this fight has been going on since then. The attack on the Constitution. And it's the Constitution that has provided for this transition. So everybody who participated in removing this article actively stopped the transition. And so you're asking the rest of us to go back and reconstruct a transition that was provided for in the Constitution. So please, all of you, get back on track, realign your brains to understand that a transition had been provided for in the Constitution through term limits, through age limits. All those were provided for as safeguards. Now, the attack on that, and you know who did so. If you don't, check the Hansard, because it was done all in open day space. Led us to where we are, and you are asking us to resolve a matter in which nationwide failure happened under your charge. So what are we remaining to do? Is to repair. And we are doing our very best to do so. Now, Mugisha makes a right point that this constitutional review piecemeal and is creating a vacuum for themselves. And Article 3 has also been activated. We have talked about Article 3 that empowers every citizen to do anything and everything, including armed rebellion, to safeguard the Constitution. And that's where we are going at. Now, do not assign it just to us, because it is our collective responsibility. Let us know that when we activate Article 3, we are all on board, because we want to liberate ourselves. I want to assure you that Article 3 has been on the table for all this long. The current opposition is disorganized. This has been the target of the ruling party, to weaken the entire country, to weaken all the institutions of governance, all institutions of society. It has weakened the church, it has weakened the mosque, it has weakened religious leaders, it has weakened cultural leaders, it has weakened political parties, including the NRM itself. And that's why they gambled with Pirao, did not achieve what it needed to do in order to get to where they wanted to go, a succession. They have postponed it. They haven't stopped stalking this country. They have only postponed it. And there's no time frame on this postponement. So the weakening of society, the weakening of institutions has been and continues to be the weapon of NRM and President Museveni. He even brags about it. Look at what he said of the Lord Mayor and that position of an elected mayor, that he has remained only with chains. They have used the law to disempower the population and to by disempowering the elected mayor. So that should not be lost on you. And it's not even rocket science. This is what is happening amongst us. Elections. Why go into elections when you already know the outcome? You never stop trying. We have organized and we continue to organize. We are continuously being targeted, and we know that we are targeted. Now that the effects of this bad governance are all over us, including you, this is time for us all to work together. And you'll find a willing partner in us. Just come by, find us at Katonga, find us in Kavuli, find us wherever you want to find us. The choice is yours. Why don't we join another group? That too is on the table. We are looking for a group to join. And we think that it's best to join a group and join it as a group because we are an entity and we want to join another entity as an entity. And I think that is well advised. Transition is disorganized. Yes, in this disorganization, you will find order, finally. We are not going to tell you everything that is being planned, everything that is being arranged and organized. What I am authorized to tell you is that, yes, we are organizing. Don't be laptop politicians that are busy commentating as if you live in another country. The first thing we must do is the rule of law, and I'm glad that the legal profession is championing this, and I want to thank them for that resounding statement that they want better and that they are willing to give it to themselves. Don't go home and relax. We will build on that nucleus that you've already begun. If you want us to play by the rules, yes, we can, but we also may opt to play outside the rules. Because if the rules have become a weapon of containment, we will activate Article 3 and work outside what is accepted as the norm. We want to create a new normal. Yusuf Serunkuma has said so many things. I would want him to find himself a constituency to give effect to his wide views, because you can only access power, elective power, through an election. And if you have chosen another space, let us also use that space to add value to other spaces. These questions, I think, should be more to you. You should be providing more answers than expecting one group to offer all the answers, because this country is bleeding from its seams. You know, it is suffering from multiple organ failure. In all these spaces, do whatever needs to be done, and we will finally emerge on the table to chart out a new future for ourselves. Thank you.
All right. So we take another round of questions. Again, I don't see a lady, and it would have been such a pleasure seeing one or some, for that matter. But you fight with the army that you have. That's a famous quote by President of Rwanda. So we're going to fight with the army that we have. We'll give the microphone to those that have asked for it. Okay. Boaz. We are going to start with Boaz. Then we'll go to Oling, and then we'll go to King Mansa, in that order. Boaz, kindly speak now. Or let's have Oling instead, as Boaz gets his microphone sorted. Boaz or Oling, whoever is ready.
Yes, how are you?
Fine, Oling. Just go ahead.
Okay, yeah. I hear the discussions, but the way I see things is Uganda is just like a provider to like so many people. Everyone wants. Okay, let me compare it to like marriage. Like a husband has like 4 girls that he has to marry, and each of those girls, there are 2 scenarios. You can either marry all the 4 or marry one at a time. So the Uganda that we are in right now is like marrying one girl at a time. But then when that girl comes into the house, she wants to remain in that house like for good. And then these other girls will have to wait for this girl either to die or to divorce for them to have a chance. So the other scenario is that this man, the provider, marries all of them, so that each and everyone is inside that house and being provided for. So what I see is that the only solution for Uganda is like federal. If we can have like some kind of federal state whereby the north has its own stuff, the west, the central, the east. Because if we give the west, no one will ever think of like stop liking to eat. If I'm in the house and I'm eating, why should I let somebody else to come and eat? But if each and every one of us is eating, that means I think the country will grow faster. There will be labor in each and every single like area of Uganda. But in case we say that, let us just leave the constitution, then article this and that, the person who will be in power, whether it's central, whether it's north, whether it's east, whether it's west, they'll always want to remain there. For example, something like the Western vote, that one there is like already written off. The Westerners will never vote for anybody else. That one there you just know. But now we're having the central vote.
Oling, what do you mean the Westerners will never vote for anybody else?
Like okay, in percentage wise, like if anybody else comes that is not from the West and competes, okay, and let me say stands for office, I don't think a Westerner will think of giving another person. They'll have that. Can I say patriotism or what? There is that thing like oberanga alidde mu nsi olukwe, something like that. So they'll like their thing, and that is natural. You can't say that it's selfish or that. It's just natural to everybody.
Okay, as you wind up,
Yes, as I wind up, what I say is let us look forward to a final solution, which will be federalism, whereby all the resources that come from the West remain in the West, develop the West. The ones in Central remain in Central, develop the Central. East, and then the North, and then, but we can have some kind of correlation, but not one person as a president having the power to rule each and every person and have each and everybody else to be like a subject or a slave, something like that. That's
okay,
my suggestion. Yeah.
perfect. Mansa,
Thank you, Toko. I've been listening from the start to this point. I certainly don't agree with Olink because we've been at campus where we've seen people voting, people who are not their tribesmates, and it's not something that's a long discussion. But I want to first thank Honorable Salam Musumba for the discussion. It's eye-opening and it's informative, and I've loved the discussion. But I want to say this, that Martin Luther King said that out of a mountain of despair, there seems to be a stone of hope. And even if you want to blind yourself to the realities of the day, in Uganda, there is a stone of hope that has been, that probably I would say God is trying to show everyone that. I know the old political actors do not want to see or to say this or to rally behind this person, but I believe there is that stone of hope that whether you want it or not, you can either shape this stone of hope into the person that you want to be, to lead the transition or to lead the change that you need, other than trying to pluck his wings and stuff like that. And I'm so glad to hear that discussions are ongoing to find a way of working together that is so fulfilling. And I believe that even if I don't mention the name, we all can see this person. No, not the Pilau people. I'm sorry. And then I want to end by saying that still Martin Luther King in 1968, March 31st, during his Washington National Cathedral speech, he said that we shall overcome because the arc of moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. I believe that whichever means that we choose to take on, for me, I'll be there to support and I'll actively involve myself. And at the end, we shall be victors. Museveni has done whatever he has done, but time is not on his side and he knows it. And it is upon us to have the moral strength to tell those he's preparing to take over from him that it won't be possible, even if it means us identifying to the last of their kinsfolk, to the last of their bloodline. We shall, and ours will be, I don't know, because some of us have pain right from Luelo, who have an attachment there. So by the virtue of fact that we silently sometimes feel that pain and we look at how people are messing up the nation, yet our people died, yet our future has been robbed from us. I'm telling you that it will be wise enough, and in fact it is within the best interest of Museveni to prepare a smooth transition. But if he doesn't, those who say that they have guns, they will protect themselves. No one has monopoly over violence. No one has monopoly over guns. I beg to submit. Thank you.
Thank you, Womungadi.
Well, thank you, Toko. Salamu Samba Nkutumida. I just love your presentation, the strength. I think recently I had challenged you, asking you people that do we have a woman who can rise up in Uganda? You sound like one. Salamu Sumba, I come from School of Thought, Public Administration, where we are saying we need to do what we call civil engineering in public administration, since public administration is multidisciplinary. And the political science that produces politicians is just part of it. I love what Samakad has just done. And all along I have been talking to him and telling him that, yes, that's what we call civil engineering. Now, as a medic, if medics did what Samakad did, that country can be liberated without a bullet being shot. How can you have intern doctors who become hemophiliacs? 2,000 of them, they have got lost. And that would be the start of a revolution. I've been telling young people there's nothing that country now that Museveni can do that you can't do. Whether it is stealing election, you'll do it better. Whether picking a gun, you can do it better. Don't get threatened by anyone. I wouldn't fear an 80-year-old person, because for me, I would ask to see his will. Because he's dying, so you should be asking him, what are you leaving for us? And the younger people should do that. I just like the energy Salamu Sumba has put to this discussion, and it's challenging everyone. What are you doing? What are you speaking as you? You who is interviewing Salamu Sumba, what is your input? Do you first belong? Are you first a citizen to that country before you can ask any questions? Thank you, Salamu Sumba.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Who hasn't spoken? Olia?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think mine is going to differ a little bit. Just a few weeks ago, we saw, I think it was a tweet from the CDF, and he clearly put it like no civilian, would be allowed to rule the country after President Museveni. So within me, I was thinking, what are the options that we, the younger generation, have? Are we going to have to take power forcefully from the current establishment? Or there's another direction that we can take? So for me, I'm thinking like especially the guys in the opposition wing. We've tried several ways of ensuring that power is changed peacefully, but they have failed. So can we just go to another kind of alternative dispute resolution? Because for me, what I see is that there's a conflict between the current establishment and the citizens. So can we find a situation whereby there's a win-win for both sides without resorting to the whole thing of violence? Because looking at the way things are going on right now, we may easily end up in that path. So
Okay.
for me, yeah, that's my addition. Yeah.
So I'm going to take two more, and then we revert to the honorable, who will respond to all the questions in the 15 minutes that she'll be having. It will be about 10 minutes. So Ochaya, Adepo, and how are we going to do this without seeming to discriminate some people? Okay, so I'm going to give each of you 30 seconds. Let's use 4 minutes. Adepo Chelengat, please ask your questions right now.
Thank you so much. My name is Chelangat Ashraf from Kapshorwa district in Sabesa region. I've just joined in and I found some few speakers. I found someone present about how I had the previous two speakers, and in the quest for transition of leadership, I feel that we need to revolutionize the mindsets of the young people. Young people must come to understand that the challenges, the current crisis that we're experiencing in our generation is a generational crisis, and it can no longer hold things for an 80-year-old man who by then had their own challenges of their times that provoked them to cause a revolution that brought them to power. And now that we have seen this, even when it comes to national address, it comes around telling us about how they went to the bush, how they fought. Yes, they had the genuine cause, but now they
Okay,
deviated.
Chelengat,
What I'm saying,
yes, conclude, yes.
I want to say that it is prudent enough for us to sensitize the masses massively. The young people must come to understand that where this country has come from and where it is today, we owe it to ourselves and the future generations. I didn't get Honorable Proscovia's submissions. Maybe I'll later on want to listen to a clip. Thank you.
The recording will be here. You can always listen into the recording afterwards. Who was the next? Fresh Baba? Fresh Baba, your microphone is muted. So that means that even if you shouted, we couldn't hear you.
Thank you, Tokwa. Thank you, Agora. Mine will go to direct to Honorable Proscovia Salam Sumba. My question is, what has really failed the opposition to merge and make one political party? Because if the enemy is one and we are all shooting at one point, why don't we, like the opposition, merge and make a very strong political party and fight that enemy and overthrow the enemy at once? Unless if this is just a business whereby every time a group of people making a new political party, you see every time political party is emerging. I think it's more of business than the main motive of fighting the enemy. So, Honorable Salam Sumba, I want you to highlight about that. What is failing the opposition to merge and make a very strong political party and fight the enemy? Thank you.
Okay, Kenan, had you asked? Kenan Olia?
Yeah, I think I gave my submission, Toko.
Sorry, I forgot to take the microphone from you. Birigwa Moses, you'll be the final person to ask a question today, unless a lady pops up. So Birigwa, your microphone is muted, just in case you're speaking.
Okay, I think now I'm clear. Yes, good evening, everybody. This is General Vigilwa Moses. I am the president of Eastern Revolutionary Platform. I have.
So, mukyuse attitude mubakwane mubakaze struggle yaffe mubalage ne betwagala okutereeza tetwagala just kubeera bezi mu buyinza twagala ensi yaffe ekyuke luweero yandibadde ne zi highway yandibadde ne zi university ate kino kiri mu buli kitundu busoga obwavu bubamalawo northern uganda obwavu bubamalawo luweero obwavu bubamalawo ebuddu ekizibu tulina kyekimu so mwekolemu omulimu tolinda MPO bw'aba ayogera luzungu mu parliament Brenda muleka ayogera oluzungu mwekolemu omulimu baganda bange mwekolemu omulimu mu connectinge temulinda byakulonda tuli batutuuse nga tetunajayo Museveni tunabirowoozaako ebyo naye naawo mwekolemu ejje kati sigamba eri akutemula abantu nga ba Museveni bwe baatemula ate oba n'enjuki zeekolamu ejje n'obumyu bwekolamu ejje lwaki temulyekolamu kati njagala mubeere bukolwa mukole enkola ya bukolwa so bakulembeze bannange muinvolvinge buli omu ate muyunitinge manyi nti mubulamu bumulumulu naye njagala nnyo tufokasinge ku bitugatta kuba ebitugatta biri 9-9 ekitwawula kiri kimu tufokasinge ku bitugatta obaka bange bujja okusembayo bujagenda eri bannayuganda bonna naddala abo bafayita abalwanirizi b'eddembe baganda bange manyi mubeerako mukozesa zi social media ez'enjawulo mukozesa zi TikTok mukozesa zi WhatsApp mukozesa Facebook mukozesa apps ez'enjawulo mbasaba major on the majors and the minor on the minors mufokasinge ku nsonga enkulu ebintu ebikulu ensonga enkulu ze mbamuwa amakulu ensonga ezitalina makulu temuziwa makulu ye mmwe kennyini mwe musobola okufuula ensonga enkulu ate mwe musobola okufuula ensonga etalina mulamwa naye ensonga etalina mulamwa mbasaba temugiwa mulamwa kuba buli bwe muwa ensonga etalina mulamwa omulamwa ensonga erina omulamwa olwo muba mugisuuliridde ndaba nnyo nga tuli diverted kino nekijja ate ebintu ebimu biba deliberate biba bigenderere kutujja ku mulamwa twakoma ddi okwogera ku mabaati twakoma ddi okwogera ku bubbi buli nnaku wano waliwo scandal fone babadde ali mu kutubuulira ku mpapula ezatute miliyoni 4 okuzijja mu Kampala paka Ntebe kagambanga bagamba empapula zino zapangisiza ennyonyi seemu mukwano gwange olala yali agenda kukola mbaga ngegenda mujja wano emutwale Kajansi emulandingse naye nga babasaba miliyoni 3 so bwe ziba nnyonyi 10 eziba miliyoni meka 3 waba wasigaddewo ekikumi ne bapangisa n'emmotoka endala 10 ne bapangisa ne bodaboda ne bapangisa ne nga batwala mpapula naye ensonga teri focused on kubanga babawugula temukkiriza kuwugulibwa buli we bagezako badivatinga ku nsonga eziri
matter under the constitution today, and also registering a party of parties has had its own administrative issues. We have found a way in which we will work together, and take it from me that proposal is on the table. And whoever chooses not to be on the table on that proposal can present another proposal of theirs. But for sure, the one presented by Awan Vijirwa from Kamuli is the least. It's the least viable because cut and paste from other places He sounds like he's working for another purpose. Unless he's proposing that we go back to the constituent parts that made Uganda, then we can go to Busoga, go to Bunyoro, Buganda, and all that. But you cannot have new creations called political parties to superimpose their will on those regions as they were at independence. Go back and read more of how we came to be under the nation, and let's retrace our independence journey from there. Much as we want change, we are not looking for any change. Getting any change will be the last option. But as people who love their country and care about our collective good, we still have to keep talking and keep organizing. Why haven't we merged? One, we first had a problem of egos. Others call them egos. That people with titles of generals and colonels and what, they did not see the bigger good. They saw ranks instead of a mission of liberation. And that's why I gave it to Dr. Besigye that everybody else had refused to rally the country about the threats and the failures he had warned about inside the NRA, that he had the courage to do so. Others are following suit, but they failed to do what they needed to do at the right time, in the right place. Now, when we acknowledge that, we also understand that this country does not only belong to one generation. We are also part of this country, and so are others of other generations. We fell prey to that narrative under Museveni that they had brought fundamental change. Now, that fundamental change is being revised. And revisionism is part of the problem that bedevils us today in Uganda. Let us be honest and know that we haven't gotten everything right as we should and we ought to have. I have no fear of starting again under whoever, under whatever arrangement will comply with the rule of law, will comply with term limits, and that we will find a cure to many of these problems, political problems that have bedeviled. Somebody earlier was talking about serial monogamy. A serial monogamy is where please don't invent things that have a short shelf life. Other jurisdictions to learn from. And let's pick the lessons that the 95 Constitution was about, for us to be able to work out a new future for ourselves. Even that has failed. So the only best option we have is to be honest that we have failed collectively. Our outlooks and our understanding of who we are is varied. And people in my culture be cleverer than your father. You can't, even with technology. And therefore, this is the conversation that I want to appreciate, that it is across all generations and across all regions and across all genders. Let us do exactly that. The current opposition, Bosco, an opposition, no. There's a one who says that this opposition is a provider for themselves, to impute that we are a selfish group that is looking for self-aggrandizement. That narrative too will leave us in the cold. We have the tools and means and capacity to work out who is who. And we also can put, and we should put, safeguards, leadership safeguards, into all our administrative and legal provisions and constitutional provisions, so that you don't spend more time speculating, wondering, and what. You have a definite answer that this is what is happening. I think that's enough for the day. The quest for transition and the crisis in which we find ourselves, Ashraf Chelangat, I have had, and this preoccupies us all the time. And for anybody who has anything, any money on them, any property, it is your first duty to work out a secure future for ourselves. Not this, because I read fear in all the questions and all the questioning. You are fearing, you have been seized with fear, all of you. And you listen to each other out of fear. And when I look at this, the platform, most people are just watching, and most of them are operatives of the state. No value addition. I hope they would take it back and create that country that the 1980 to 86 battle was meant to do. That country that the 1962 Independence Union was supposed to do. Toko and Agora, thank you very much for having us today. I pray that we will find Honorable Muntu, because I know his story, I know his passion, and I know his aspiration for all of us, that this time maybe we will listen to each other and we will find it in ourselves, bury the hatchets and save a country. Bank on me and bank on my colleagues from Katonga to be part of that winning team that seeks to liberate this country. Thank you.
The pleasure is all ours, Honorable Salam Musumba. We are great that we had you right from 7 to now 9. A very engaging discussion we had. For those who joined in late, as it happens sometimes, this discussion was recorded. It's going to be on the Agora Twitter handle. I don't know if it will be pinned, but it's going to be there. You can always check that handle and listen in from the start or from any point where you may want to get whatever was said that you didn't hear or you want to hear for a second time. Like I said, these discussions are now a series. We had the last one with Andrew Mwenda last week. It's also somewhere on the Agora handle. If you missed it, you can go and find it. We unfortunately were unable to have General Mugisha Muntu, who is attending a party. Some of the good things that happen in Uganda, political parties, not political parties. I mean, just parties. You can't have a transition, but we have parties. So he was attending a party, and that unfortunately rendered him unable to join this space. But we hope to have him probably solos next week, and then he can take us through this discussion as someone who commanded the Ugandan army at just the paltry age of 26, who has headed a political party, in concert with others, formed another and also headed that party, participated in presidential elections, and so many things under his belt. So we shall have him next week. Look out for that conversation. And then up to the end of the year, probably we'll be bringing in someone every once in a while to share their perspective on the big topic in Uganda, the political transition. From Agora to you, we are grateful that you joined us and listened in. Wish you all a good night and see you next week.
Million bina okuzijja mu Kampala paka Ntebe kegambanga bagamba empapula zino zapangisiza ennyonyi seemu mukwano gwange olala yali agenda kola mbaga ngegenda mujja wano emutwale Kajansi emulandingise naye nga babasaba miliyoni 3 so bwe ziba nnyonyi 10 eziba miliyoni meka 3 waba wasigaddewo 10 ne bapangisa ne motoka endala 10 ne bapangisa ne boda boda ne bapangisa ne nga batwala mpapula naye ensonga teri focused on kubanga babawugula temukkiriza kuwugulibwa buli bagezako badivertinga ku nsonga eziri peti baba balina kye bagezaako okubikkirira. Museveni akozesa abantu bangi nnyo ate mbasaba mubeere bagezigezi ng'ebyana by'omusota. Museveni takyalina nsonyi, akozesa n'abo bemwesiga, akozesa n'abayita bakabona ba Katonda. Kati gwe n'osanga ng'akozeseza oba musumba ayogera ebintu ebibawugula ne mumala wiiki namba muliko oyo ye ng'alina kyayisaawo. N'akozesa ba artist bannaffe ng'olwanirira bo bennyini naye ate n'abakozesa okudivertinga. Mbasaba baganda bange temubeera diverted ku bantu Museveni bakozesa. Omulabe wa Uganda ye Museveni. Era Secretary General waffe akyogeddeko abaako n'obukunkumuka bw'abasuulira ayinza okubasuulira obusente ne mulwanira ku obwo ye ng'adduka misinde. Mulemere ku Museveni. Tetulina kuva ku Museveni, tulina omubeerako ne tumulabisa ne tulabisa ne babbi banne nga mu buswavu bw'ekitalo ng'abbi wa akalulu ng'ensi yonna emulaba omusajja omukulu oyo gwolaba. Naye era tuba tugenze tumunafuya, tetuli bwe twali twagala kubeera naye bwe twali si bwe tuli. So temugwamu manyi baganda bange, temuleka any stone unturned. Every opportunity bw'obanga kyogenda okufunayo kyakuwangula kuyingira mu office gendayo, bw'obanga kyogenda okufunayo